Samsaradava nalalidaloka Tranaya karuna gunaganatvam Praptasya kalyana gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyan Manasorasena Romancha Kampa Shutaranga Vajo Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shingarathan Mandiramarjanado Yuktasya bhaktam saniyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Chaturvida Shri Bhagavad Prasada Swadana Triptan Hari Bhaksha Sangram Kritraiva Triptim Bhajata Sadaiva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Shri Radhika Madhava Yurapara Madhurya Leela Gunarupa Namnam Pratikshanazva Dhanalolupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinam कुञ्जयो नो रतिकेलिसिद्धाय यायालिवीर्युक्तिरपेक्षणीयाय तत्रातिराक्षारतिवल्लभस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् साक्षादरित्रिणा समस्तशास्त्रे उक्तस्तथा भाव्यतेव साध्वी किन्तु प्रभोर्या प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् यस्य प्रसाद भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसाद न गति कुतोऽपि जयं स्तुवांस्तस्य यशत्रिसाद्यं वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद चैतन्य नित्यानंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद Nityananda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Nilamadva, Radha Nilamadva, Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jai Radhe. Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Jai Om Vishnu Pada Hamsa Pratikacharya Ashwata Sutta Shishma Divine Grace Aparchana Rinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya BBD founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pada Hamsa Pratikacharya Ashwata Sutta Shishma Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Rinda Ki Jai. Nama Acharya Srila Haridasa Thakur Ki Jai. Primitive Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Shri Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Shri Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Gaura Pamanande. All glory to assembled devotees. All glory to assembled devotees. All glory to assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glory to Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Thank you. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Prahlad Lad Daine. Prahlad Lad Daine. Nitanga Purvasaha Hiranyakashi Purvasaha Srilatanka Nakalai तीतो नरसिंगा परतो नरसिंगा यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंगा बाहिर नरसिंगा हृदय नरसिंगा नरसिंहमुदिं शरणं प्रपदे तव कर कमल वरे नाखाप अद्भुत श्रृंगार दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृंगा केशवधीरता नरहरि रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय नरसिंह देव जय नरसिंह देव जय नरसिंह देव जय नरसिंह देव जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 बोल नरसिंह भगवान की जय गुरुदेव महाराज की जय प्रभुपाद महाराज की जय हरे कृष्णा मुझे मिल के जाना प्रसाद लाया हूँ आपके लिए
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रियासी नमो नमः राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाओ ei abhilashi Radha Krishna seva pao ei abhilashi जे तमारा शरण लो तारा वंशा पूर्ण हो कृपा कोरी करो तारे वृंदावन वासी मोरा यही अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो वा नयने हरि बो सदा युगल रूप राशि এই নিবেদন ধরো সখীর অনুগত করো सेवाधिकार दिए करो निज दासी जिन्ना कृष्ण दास कोई जिन्ना मोरा होई श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेम सदा न भासी श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा न भासी यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे जय तुलसी हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani. Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Shri Vrinda Devi Tulsi Maharani ki.
Oh, Tulasi, beloved of Krishna, I bow down before you again and again. My desire is to gain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has wishes fulfilled. Bestow mercy upon him and make him a resident of Vrindavan. My desire that is, you will always grant me presence in pleasant groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus with imagination I shall always behold the beautiful person Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me follow a careful identical direction. Please give me grace to do some service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen lowly servant of Krishna prays. May I always swim in the love of Shri Radha and go. Shri Chaitanya Shikshastakam Kita. Cheto Tarpana Marjanam Bhava Mahadavakti Nirvapanam Shriya Gairava Chantrika Vitaranam Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam Purnarmita Sadhanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nanamakari Bhudani Sarva Shakti Tatrapita Niyamita Smaranena Kalaha Etadishi Tava Kripa Bhagavam Mamapi Durdaivami Visham Yaha Janinanurakaha Prinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtanya Sadaharihi Nathanam Natjanam Nasundarim Kavitam Vajagati Sukamaye Mama Janmani Jamanishware Bhavata Bhaktir Haikuti Tvai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavam Buddha Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Sita Duri Satesham Vichinchaya Nayanam Ganadashu Taraya Ratnam Gatsara Rudaya Gira Pulakai Nishtam Vapurkada Tava Nama Grahane Bhavishati Yuga Itam Nimishena Chakshusha Pravisha Itam Shunya Itam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virate Name Ashishava Padratam Vinnashtumam Adarshana Marhatam Karotuva Yathatha Vavi Tathatu Lampato Matprana Nata Sutaheva Naparaha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Sri Chaitanya Shikshastakam Ki. Glory to Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years, and extinguishes the fire of conditioned ours like others. In such a state of mind, we can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire for criminal wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, first come before. O somehow lender, and the eternal servitor, if somehow other have fallen into the ocean first and death, please pick me up from the ocean of death and place me among the islands of the lotus sea. O my Lord, while my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant the holy name, while my voice choke up, while my body stand at end by recitation of your holy name. O Govind, feeling of separation as the moment be like melancholy. Tears are flowing from eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the worship of absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and shall remain so till, and
Soga Chaitam Jagadanda Kotim Yastakti Rasti Jagadanda Chaya Yadanta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta Rastam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bajami Tataiva Samprapya Rupa Mahimasanyana Bhusa Suktar Yameva Nigama Pratitastavanti Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavita Vistabirya Eva Nijarupa Tayakalabi Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhuto Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santak Sadeva Hridesa Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bajami Ramadi Sukala Menatistan Nana Karam Rud Sukintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramampo Mamyo Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bajami Yasya Prabhavato Jagananda Koti Koti Swasesa Vasudadi Vibhuti Binam Dat Brahmaniskalam Anantam Asesa Bhutam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bajami Maya Yasya Antanani Sute Vagun Yatad Visayveda Vitaya Manam Sadva Valambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Matmasum Praninam Patifalam Smaratam Upetya Lilayatena Bhuvanani Jayaya Jasram Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bajami Goloka Namni Nijadamni Talechatasya Devi Maheso Haridama Sute Sutesu Tete Prabhavani Chaya Vitascha Yena Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bajami Sististati Pralaya Sada Vasakti Reka Chaye Vyasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Ichana Rupam Apyasya Chitestate Sa Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bajami Shri Ram Yata Dadi Vikara Visesa Yoga Sanjayate Naitata Pritakasti Hetu Yasambhutam Apitatasam Apaitikarya Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bajami Diparshire Vidasantanam Abhyapetya Dipayate Vitahetu Samanu Dharma Yastadrike Vicha Vishnu Taya Vibhati Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bajami Yakarna Narna Vajali Majitisma Yoga Nidram Ananta Jagananda Sarvama Kupa Adhara Saktim Avalambya Paramsma Murtim Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bajami Yasyaika Nisvasitakala Matavalambya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagadandanata Vishnu Mahansa Yasya Kalapi Seso Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bajami Basman Yatasma Sakalesan Ajesu Teja Swiyam Kiyat Prakatayat Apitadratatra Brahmaya Esa Jagadanda Vidanu Karta Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bajami Yat Pada Bala Vigam Vinidaya Kumbha Dwande Pranamas Mayesa Ganadi Raja Vignan Vihantam Alamasya Jagatrayasya Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bajami Agnir Mahiga Ganamambu Marudisasya Kalas Tatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visanti Amcha Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bajami Yaschak Suresa Savita Sakalagrahanam Raja Samasta Suramurti Sesa Teja Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kalachak Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bajami Dharmo Tapapa Nichaya Sutayastapam Sri Brahma Nikita Patagavati Yastajibha Yadata Matra Vibhava Prakata Prabhava Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bajami Yaschandra Gopa Matavendra Mahusva Karma Bandhana Rupa Valabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nidhati Kinchit Bhakti Bhajam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bajami Yam Krodha Kama Saja Panayadibiti Vatsaya Moho Gorogora Vasevya Bhava Sanchintya Tasya Sadrisim Tanamapurete Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bajami Shriyakanta Kanta Paramapurusha Kalpataru Ojamabumis Chintamani Ganama Itwam Amritam Kataganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Sipriyasaki Chirinandam Jyoti Param Apitata Swatyam Apichasa Yatra Shiradi Bhisra Vidisarabi Vyasti Sumahan Nimesar Dakyuva Vajitina Yatripi Samaya Bhajisvita Dvipam Tamaham Ihugolokamitiham Vedantas Te Santakshati Virachara Katipaye Shri Guru Vastaka prayers ki jai. The spiritual masters receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it. So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such spiritual masters, an ocean of auspicious qualities, chanting the holy names, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual masters always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. but because he's relishing the mellows of pure devotion with his mind. Sometimes his hair stands on end, he feels quivering in his body, and tears fall from his eyes like waves. Over my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet is such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship. O Lord, offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet is such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada, he is satisfied. For my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet is such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes, Radhika, Madhava, and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. For my most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet is such spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he's expert in assisting the gopis who at different times make different tastes and arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana. For my most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet is such spiritual master. Spiritual master to be honored as much the Supreme Lord because he's the most confidential servant to the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet is such spiritual master as bona fide representative of Shri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, I receive the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, I cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet is such spiritual master at least 3 times a day. So offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantha Raja ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 6, verse number 33. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Padmayam Bhagavato Gyajne Shusrusa Dharma Siddhaye Tasyam Jata Pura Sudro Yat Ritya Tusyate Hari. Padmayam, from the legs, Bhagavata, of the personality of Godhead, Jajne, became manifested. Susrusa, service. Dharma, occupational duty. Siddhaye, for the matter of. Tasyam, in that. Jata, being generated. Pura, formerly. Sudra, the servitors. Yat Ritya, the occupation by which. Tusyate, becomes satisfied. Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thereafter, service was manifested from the legs of the Personality of Godhead for the sake of perfecting the religious function. Situated in the legs are the Sudras, who satisfy the Lord by service. Service, purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Service is the real constitutional occupation of all living entities. The living entities are meant to render service to the Lord, and they can attain religious perfection by this service attitude. One cannot attain religious perfection simply by speculating to attain theoretical knowledge. The Jnani division of the spiritualists go on speculating only to distinguish the soul from matter. But they have no information of the activities of the soul after being liberated by knowledge. It is said that persons who only mentally speculate to know things as they are and who do not engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord are simply wasting their time. It is clearly said here that the principle of service was generated from the legs of the Lord for the sake of perfecting the religious process. But this transcendental service is different from the idea of service in the material world. In the material world, no one wants to be a servant. Everyone wants to become the master, because false mastership is the basic disease of the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul in the material world wants to lord it over others. Illusioned by the external energy of the Lord, he is forced to become a servant of the material world. That is the real position of the conditioned soul. The last snare of illusory external energy is the conception of becoming one with the Lord. And due to this conception, the illusioned soul remains in the bondage of material energy, falsely thinking himself a liberated soul and as good as Narayana. It is actually better to be a Sudra than to be a Brahmana and not develop the service attitude, because that attitude alone satisfies the Lord. Every living entity, every living being, even if he be a Brahmana by qualification, must take to the transcendental service of the Lord. Both Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam support that this service attitude is the perfection of the living entity. A Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Sudra can perfect his occupational duties only by rendering service unto the Lord. A Brahmana is supposed to know this fact due to his perfection in Vedic wisdom. The other sections are supposed to follow the direction of the Brahmana. Vaishnava, one who is a Brahmana by qualification and a Vaishnava by action, that will make the entire society perfect in regard to the order of the social construction. A disordered society cannot satisfy either the members of the society or the Lord. Even if one is not a perfect Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Sudra, but takes to the service of the Lord, not caring for the perfection of his social position, he becomes a perfect human being simply by developing the attitude of service to the Supreme Lord. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanandi Hari Bol. Therefore, service was manifested from the legs of the personality Godhead for the sake of perfecting the religious function. Situated on the legs are the Sudras, who satisfy the Lord by service. So this is a revelation, especially when it says it's better to be a Sudra than to be a Brahmana and not develop the service attitude. So, are there a lot of Brahmanas today that don't have the service attitude? To a large extent, yes. Depends. Are they serving themselves, or are they actually serving the Lord? That's the question. To serve or not to serve? That is the question. So, the emphasis here is on the service attitude. Is there a difference between service attitude and service? Well, the service attitude leads to service, let's put it like that. And if for some reason you cannot do the service, let's say you're paralyzed, or let's say you're blind, or let's say you're deaf, simply having that service attitude and performing service mentally is the same as performing service. So having the service attitude is the major first step to actually engaging in service. So Prabhupada is emphasizing the service attitude. Let's see what he says here. How many times does he mention it? So he begins by saying, service is the real constitutional occupation of all living entities. So if you want to know what is your constitutional position, that means what you are, let's say, assets you have, and for what purpose do you have them? So you have very many wonderful assets, such as eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, mind, intelligence, and ego. Now, how should you use those assets? You should use them all in the service of Krishna. Then you are situated in your real constitutional position. Service is the real constitutional occupation of living entity. So when it says constitutional occupation, that means the real action for which your body and mind and all these assets are made to be used for. Now, if we use all these assets just for sense gratification, it's a violation of our constitutional, let's say, position or occupation, and we become subject to laws of karma. So, should this be taught to your child right away, as soon as possible? We are meant to be servants of Krishna. We're not meant to serve ourselves and our lust, anger, and greed. So, this is a fundamental point of philosophy, Krishna philosophy. And unless we understand this, we'll remain in a state of illusion. What is our constitutional position? I mean, a constitutional means by law, by dictate. So look up the word constitution. Constitutional, the adjective. You want to look up the adjective, constitutional. So unless we understand this one point, going further in Krishna consciousness is not going to be very successful. First of all, we should know what we're meant to do in this body. And the body does not belong to us. And we're going to get to that in the latter part of the lecture. What does it say? Constitutional, as an adjective.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Constitutional, the adjective, two definitions or meanings. Relating to an established set of principles governing a state, that is the first one, as in a constitutional amendment. The second,
Relating to
an established set of principles governing a state, as in a constitutional amendment. The second definition is relating to someone's physical or mental condition, as in a constitutional weakness.
Anything else?
Those are the two. Then there is a noun.
Or I'll read the noun.
The noun says a walk, typically one taken regularly to maintain or restore good health. Like she went out for a constitutional. But this is dated, as in the archaic uses.
Yeah, okay, so read the first one again. Relating to an established
Set of principles
set of principles
governing a state.
So the way Prabhupada uses this adjective, constitutional, means the set of principles governing this body. Right? Why did you get this type of body? This human body. What is it meant for? And therefore the constitutional occupation of all living entities. So what you're supposed to do, what is your main activity in life, right? That's befitting this body, and that is service to Radha and Krishna. This is the first thing you should teach your child. What is the meaning of this body? What is it meant for? It's to serve Radha and Krishna. There's no other purpose for it other than that. Now, how do most people consider their constitutional occupation? That is to serve themselves and their family and their country and their relatives and their neighbor or whatever. They serve their own lust, anger, and greed. So we see, unless you start with this in education, you're not going to get anywhere. First of all, we have to realize what is the purpose of having this body that has these assets. It's to use them in the service of Krishna. If we use them any other way, we get subject immediately to the laws of karma. And the laws of karma are blind. If you say, oh, well, I made a mistake, I'm sorry. There's no sorry. The laws of karma will act immediately. Just like, does a Coca-Cola machine have any mercy? No. If it doesn't function right, like you put your 50 cents in it to get a Coke, and nothing comes out. And then you bang on it, you push the button to get your money back, nothing happens. And finally, you hit it and you shake it, nothing happens. Then you say, Prabhu, please give me back my money or the Coke. There's no mercy there. You can't beg mercy of a machine. So in the same way, we should be very careful about the laws of karma. If we use our senses, mind, intelligence for sense gratification, immediately there's serious consequences. It'll keep us in the material world. And one of the worst things is abandoning a child. That's one of the worst things you can do. Like, let's say you have a child and you just decide, I don't want this child, and you just walk away. That is one of the worst things you can do if you want to, if you like to suffer, right? Then the next worst thing is engaging in illicit activities. That is like devastating, because the body is not meant for that. The body is meant only to serve Krishna, Radha and Krishna. So it says, service is the real constitutional occupation of all living entities. Okay, so this is a general statement. Everybody is serving someone, and if you don't have anyone to serve, you serve a dog or a cat. And if you don't have a dog or a cat, you serve your own lust, anger, and greed. But everybody's a servant. One time, this so-called great pundit came to this one rich man's house. They invited me there. They said, "Oh, Prabhu, you have to come. You have to hear him." I said, "Oh, okay." So I went. I heard him for a little bit, and he was a complete nonsense, And so at one point, he's talking to the rich guy. I mean, his whole class was how to get the rich guy to give me money, right? So anyway, he said, "Well, who are you exactly?" So it's one of those, very, straightforward, put him on the spot questions. Who are you exactly? So the rich guy was, didn't answer. So then he looked at everyone else. Well, who do you think he is? So I raised my hand, and he said, "What is it?" I said, "He's a servant." He said, No, that's not it. What? What do you mean that's not it? That's what this says. Therefore, it says, service is the real constitutional occupation of all living entities. How does he get off saying that the rich man is not a servant? Of course he's a servant. Everybody's a servant of something or someone, right? And what does Prabhupada say also, if we look in the 6th chapter? Let's see what he says here. The 6th chapter. He says, that by constitution, by our constitution, we're supposed to follow the dictates of the superior. And he says, 6th chapter, 6th verse, the constitutional position of the living entity is to carry out the order of the superior. As long as one's mind remains an unconquered enemy, one has to serve the dictations of lust, anger, avarice or greed, illusion, etc. But when the mind is conquered, one voluntarily agrees to abide by the dictation of the personality of Godhead, who is situated within the heart of everyone as Paramatma. Okay, so you see, and he used the word constitutional, right? He says that the constitutional position of the living entity is to carry out the order of the superior. Every one of us is carrying out the order of some superior. And if you say, no, not me, then how about the income tax? Yeah, that's a superior. How about the police? How about your husband or your wife? How about your kids? They say, I don't want to go to the temple. So where do you want to go? I want to go to Disneyland. Okay, let's go to Disneyland. So you see, everyone's following somebody's dictation, and someone who we consider a superior. So the service is the real constitutional occupation of all living entities. So you could write a whole book on that one sentence. you could write a whole book on it, you know, because everybody is serving somebody or something, right? And if you go look at all the different variations of that, you could write a whole book, right? The living entities are meant to render service to the Lord. Okay, now that's what you should teach your kid. We're meant to serve Krishna. That's our occupational, that's our constitutional occupational, what you would call constitutional occupation, is to serve the Lord. That's what we're made for. That's why we have this body. If you don't do that, then you don't need this body. You'll get another type of body. You want to serve meat? Okay, you'll get a body of a tiger. Right? You want to serve what? Nonsense activities? You get the body of a monkey. Right? So everybody is serving somebody or something. And it depends what you want. Like, for example, some people want marijuana all the time. Okay, well, they get a body to be able to have marijuana all the time. You know. So what body is that? Some kind of germ, right, that lives on the marijuana plant. Look that up. Any germs on the marijuana plant? So you see, there's a position for everyone in the material world. That's why there's 8,400,000 species. It all depends on what our desire is. And if we don't desire to serve Krishna, then we're going to desire to serve something else. And whatever that something else is, that's where you'll end up. Are there any germs on the marijuana plant? What's it say?
Yes, the pests, the bugs or viruses on marijuana or the cannabis. So caterpillars are one of the most common cannabis pests.
Oh, okay, you get a caterpillar body. You know, you keep toking out marijuana, you get a caterpillar body in the next life. You can do it your whole lifetime. Your body is made for it. Right? You see how nature works. You know, don't think this is like, oh, you know, he's exaggerating. I'm not exaggerating at all. I'm explaining what the laws of nature, right? So, service is the real constitutional occupation of all living entities. And you see how Prabhupada is precise. And he says, the living entities are meant to render service to the Lord. And they can attain religious perfection by the service attitude. So, why don't you look up service attitude, see what it says. I mean, we all know what it means, but it's good to see what the dictionary says. So the dictionary will only usually give you a definition of one word, right? But there are other dictionaries that give you definitions of 2 or 3 or phrases. So what does it say about service attitude?
Demonstrating a superior customer service attitude involves understanding expectations, going above and beyond, and being a customer advocate. When it talks about other, demonstrating behaviors of helpfulness.
So you have to go above and beyond your normal activity of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending to serve Krishna. That you need the service attitude for the Lord to go beyond your normal limitations. You say, oh, if I don't sleep, 12 hours a day, I just can't function. Right? So you got to reduce the 12 to at least 6, in order to please Krishna. So that you have to go above and beyond your so-called limits to serve Krishna. Okay. So, and everyone can attain religious perfection by the service attitude. That's how more important it is. So this is the first thing we should teach ourselves and teach our kids. This service attitude, go beyond and go above and beyond our so-called limits. Right? And it says, one cannot attain religious perfection simply by speculating to attain theoretical knowledge. The Jnani division of spiritualists go on speculating only to distinguish the soul from matter, but they have no information of the activities of the soul after being liberated by knowledge. It is said that persons who only mentally speculate to know things as they are, and who do not engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, are simply wasting their time. So, there's a lot of people wasting their time in this world. A lot of people. And we should not be one of those people. We should understand just this one paragraph. You just understand this one paragraph. It's a short paragraph. You have the gist of Krishna consciousness. And now you know exactly what you teach, what you should learn yourself and teach your kids. Just one simple paragraph, right? And you understand all the words. They're simple words. There's no, hexabio albumin, there's no words like that, right? This is real science. Simple words. Everyone understands what they mean, right? You know how to spell the words even, but the message that's being proliferated here is so profound that it can liberate you. You can attain perfection in this life just by understanding this one paragraph. That's how powerful it is, the message. Of course, you say, well, wait a minute, I get some speed reading. Yeah, I got it, okay, no, I'll go to the next paragraph now. No. Speed reading is nonsense. If you have someone says, oh, you got to learn how to do speed reading. No, you don't. You got to learn how to do reading Prabhupada's paragraphs. One paragraph. You can spend your whole life on this one paragraph. Everything is there in that one paragraph. You see, you don't have to be a speed reader to understand. They don't understand anything anyway. All they understand is, I can make more money if I'm a speed reader, right? The impetus is always making more money. So, but they have no information of the activities of the soul after being liberated by knowledge. It is said that persons who only mentally speculate to know things as they are, and who do not engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, are simply wasting their time. So all these speculators, they're simply wasting your time. So today I'm going to give a big example of speculation. But let's finish this purport. It is clearly said here that the principle of service was generated from the legs of the Lord for the sake of perfecting the religious process. But this transcendental service is different from the idea of service in the material world. So a Sudra is not someone who wears pants and a baseball hat on backwards and goes to work every day to make money so they can go to a bar or to a brothel and spend that money, or to Walmart or to Costco and buy things. That's not a Sudra. A Sudra is a devotee. People know, a Sudra is, I don't want to be a Sudra, I want to be a Brahmana. No. Sudra is an exalted position. He's a servant. That's why he says here that, he says, but this transcendental service is different from the idea of service in the material world. In the material world, no one wants to be a servant. Everyone wants to be the master, because false mastership is the basic disease of the conditional soul. Whoa. You mean there's something worse than COVID? Yes, there is. It's the disease of wanting to be the master, to control others. Listen to what I say. Don't you dare do anything other than what I say. There's so many people like that in the world. You have to listen to what they say. And what do they say? They're basically saying, you have to work for my sense gratification. Do you understand? Yeah, now we understand. Yeah. So those type of people are dangerous. So in the material world, no one wants to be a servant. Everyone wants to become the master, because false mastership is the basic disease of the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul in the material world wants to lord it over others. Whoa. Putin, Zelensky, Bhakta Joe, everybody wants to be the master, control other people. You know. Illusioned by the external energy of the Lord, he is forced to become a servant of the material world. You see, when we develop that, I want to be the owner, I want to be the controller, everything has to go through me, immediately you get trapped by the conditioning of the material nature, the laws of material nature. The conditioned soul in the material world wants to lord it over others. Illusioned by the external energy of the Lord, he is forced, we're talking about Maya here, he is forced to become a servant of the material world. So let's think about this statement because it's of vital importance. So first of all, we learned the vidya, that was the previous paragraph. Now we're learning about avidya. You see how Prabhupada teaches us, right? He doesn't just talk about vidya, knowledge. He puts knowledge and counterpoints it with ignorance. So we become conditioned by Maya because we want to be the controller, which is the basic disease, become the master, because false mastership is the basic disease of the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul in the material world wants to lord it over others, illusioned by the external energy of the Lord. So, in other words, such a person is put under Maya's grip, right? He's forced to become a servant of the material world. That is the real position of the conditioned soul. The last snare of the illusory external energy is the conception of becoming one with the Lord. Whoa, this is the Mayavadis. They're the worst of the worst. They are the worst, right? And due to this conception, the illusioned soul remains in the bondage of material energy, falsely thinking himself a liberated soul and as good as Narayana. Whoa. This is heavy, heavy-duty knowledge here, right? So, Prabhupada, first paragraph, what's the right thing to do? Second paragraph, what's the wrong thing to do? See how he writes? Vidya and avidya, side by side. Then Prabhupada says in the last paragraph, it is actually better to be a Sudra than to be a Brahmana and not develop the service attitude. Oh, that's the punchline. It's punching really hard now. It's better to be a Sudra, because a Sudra who is engaged in transcendental service is actually an exalted person. And the Brahmana who doesn't engage in devotional service is a nonsense and is going to stay in the material world. There's no way he's going to get out. Because the attitude alone satisfies the Lord. What attitude? The service attitude. If we have the service attitude to go above and beyond our so-called material limits to please Krishna, Krishna appreciates that very much. Every living being, even if he be a Brahmana by qualification, must take to the transcendental service of the Lord. Both Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam support that this service attitude is the perfection of the living entity. This is probably the most important statement. A Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Sudra can perfect his occupational duties only by rendering service unto the Lord. No other way, in other words. You can try other ways if you want, but you will not succeed. A Brahmana is supposed to know this fact due to his perfection in Vedic wisdom. Yeah. Well, this fact is all over the Bhagavad Gita, right? Bhaktya mam abhijananti yavanyaschasmi tatpata tato mam tatpato gyatva vishiti tat anantaram. It's 18th chapter and verse 55. Let's take a look at that. And it says, one can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only, notice the word only, didn't say, by various different means. No, only, there's no other way. only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of me by such devotion, in other words, just engaging in devotional service by itself is good, but it's not enough. And when one is in full consciousness of me, that means 24 hours a day, when you're thinking of Krishna, by such devotion, you can enter into the kingdom of God. All right? So that's really important. And then this is said again, 11th chapter, 55th verse, where it says, Bhakti amam abhijanante yavanyaschasmi tatvata tato mam tatvato yatva vistise tad anantaram. Actually, it's 54. 54th verse, where it says, my dear Arjuna, only, notice the word only again, this is 1154. Only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way, again, 2 times he's saying only in this. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. Now, okay, so this is all precious information. Like, you don't have to read the whole Bhagavatam. You just read this one verse and purport. You got the whole gist of the Bhagavatam, right? That's how powerful Prabhupada's purports are. A Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Sudra can perfect his occupational duties only by rendering service unto the Lord. A Brahmana is supposed to know this fact due to his perfection in Vedic wisdom. The other sections are supposed to follow the direction of the Brahmana, Vaishnava, one who is a Brahmana by qualification and a Vaishnava by action. That will make the entire society perfect in regard to the order of its social construction. A disordered society cannot satisfy either the members of the society or the Lord. Even if one is not a perfect Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Sudra, but takes to the service of the Lord, not caring for the perfection of his social position. Yeah. Oh, I should quit Microsoft and work for Amazon. I'll make more money. No, wait a minute. Why don't you just quit Microsoft and work for Krishna the rest of your life? Why not that choice, right? That's not to improve your social position. That's to improve your spiritual position, right? That will make the entire society perfect in regard to the order of its social construction. A disordered society cannot satisfy the members of the society or the Lord, even if one is not a perfect Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Sudra, but takes to the service of the Lord, not caring for the perfection of his social position being, simply by developing the attitude of service to the Supreme Lord. How many times did he repeat attitude of service, or service attitude? So this is a very important verse. That's why we're going over it very slowly, so we understand what is real Krishna consciousness. Now, do we accept this? That's another question. But here Prabhupada has put everything on the table. Dhananjaya, I printed something out. Can you bring me what I printed? Prabhupada has put everything on the table here. You know, if you just understand this one purport, everything is there for attaining perfection in human life. Now you can't say, oh, I didn't know. What? You didn't know? How many times have we gone over these things? Yeah, you can't. That's no excuse. I didn't know. Now you know. And you say, oh, wait a minute, you shouldn't have said all that. You know, now you put me on the spot. Yeah, of course. That's the whole point.
Ignorance is bliss.
Huh? Yeah, ignorance is bliss. Oh, I didn't know. You can't blame me. Yeah. No. Now you know. There's no excuse. There's no excuse for me. There's no excuse for you. So we're all on the hot seat now. Right? Okay. So now we'll go to the homework, because this purport is related to the homework today. Right? So I got homework from Samart and from Shasta and from, who was that other person? Very nice think it's a young lady. What's her name? Her name is Samyukta. Samyukta. Whose daughter is it? Where is he? No, he's not here. Oh, he's serving deities? Oh, where's his daughter? Oh, she. Okay. Anyway, she's here through her homework. Okay, that's all right. She did a good homework. All right, so let's have Shrestha read her homework. You have it with you? Yeah. Now, what is the homework? The homework is to give a list, or try and get a list, an exhaustive list of all the different living chemicals in the human body. Now, these are chemicals that the human body produces. There are a lot more chemicals that leach into the human body that compromises the health of the living entity. We'll go over that another time. I already wrote a booklet about that, but let's hear what Shrestha has written here.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
So the assignment was to find out all the different chemicals the body produces and the quantities, and list the number of DNA, RNA, etc. in a human body.
This is on the theme that chemicals come from life, not life comes from chemicals. Go ahead.
Yes. So first I started with an excerpt from this website, and it...
Is that NZ Science?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay.
So it says, enzymes are protein chemicals which carry a vital energy factor needed for every chemical action and reaction that occurs in our body. There are approximately 1,300 different enzymes found in the human cell.
In one cell?
In one cell. These enzymes can combine with coenzymes to form nearly 100,000 various chemicals that enable us to see, hear, feel, move, digest food, and think. Every organ, every tissue, and all the 100 trillion cells in our body depend upon the reactions of metabolic enzymes and their energy factor. Nutrition cannot be explained without describing the part that enzymes play. So
okay,
I wasn't...
So there are 1,300 different enzymes, and they can combine with coenzymes to form nearly 100,000 various chemicals. And there are 100 trillion cells, so 100,000 times 100 trillion, right? Now, why are we doing this? Like someone said, well, what does this have to do with Krishna consciousness? Why is Harivala speaking about this? Well, because I am writing a book. It says, impossible goals that scientists will never achieve. Point 1. So, in the introduction to that, exploration of the universe and the human body. The length and breadth of our universe is beyond the imagination of any human being. It is very clear that no mortal person whose lifespan is hardly 100 years old would ever be able to explore the mysteries of the universe. The following information from scientists, astronomers, physicists, and mathematicians will leave one in awe of the imponderable universe. The macrocosmic universe we live in and the microcosmic world within our human bodies are both enigmatic and imponderable. The universe, enigmatic means it's mysterious, and imponderable means you cannot understand it. It's beyond our scope of understanding. The universe and the human body have boundaries, yet in both there are infinite entities. That's the point. The universe has boundary also, right? There are 7 layers that enclose it, and each layer is 10 times bigger, and all we see is 5%. That's all we see. That's the visible universe. The 95% is made of dark matter and something else. Is very, nobody understands what these things are. right? We know what they are, but it's explained in Srimad Bhagavatam, but the scientists don't know what they are. So it's impenetrable. It's imponderable. No one would be able to, first of all, even go to the rim of the end of the visible universe, which is only 5% of the universe. No one could live that long. That would take billions of years already of going at the speed of light, and then the other 95% that encloses the universe. You can't even imagine what that means, right? And then now, that's on the universal level. And let's look at the body. Now we're looking at the body. We're saying, wait a minute, we're running into similar type of numbers here, right? That are imponderable. We can't. I mean, we might be able to say, 45 quadrillion. But what do you mean quadrillion? How many zeros is that? Like 27 zeros, right? How can you understand that? Okay, go ahead.
So that quote was about enzymes. So within each enzyme, within each cell, you can find nearly 1,000 different enzymes and nearly 100,000 various chemicals that are made from these cells. And then
And there are 100 trillion cells.
yes,
That's all. That's what's in one cell.
yes.
Right? So you have 100 trillion cells, huh?
In one body, there are 100 trillion cells.
Right. And so, and there's 1,300 times 100,000 chemicals. Right. Okay, go ahead. And that's only enzymes, right?
Yes.
There's a lot more now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the next part is the bodily fluids that the body produces and their daily production. So our body produces up to 1 liter of mucus per day. And what mucus does is that it lines our eyes, our mouth, and our nose, our nostrils, any open part of our body, the mucus lines it, and also the
It protects us
inside of
from
our
hydrochloric acid in the stomach.
Yes.
It also coats the stomach.
And then saliva, we produce about 0.5 liter to 1.5 liters per day. And this is for digesting food. Also, stomach acids or gastric juice, we produce 3 to 4 liters per day.
So you have acid in the body, right? And there's different types of acids.
And then red blood cells, our body.
By the way, there's not only one type of acid. It's not only hydrochloric acid. There are other acids. That's another thing we should look up. Go ahead.
So the red blood cells, there are approximately 173 to 259 billion cells produced per day.
Per day.
Per day.
Did you know that?
And then white blood cells, approximately 100 billion cells per day. And then skin cells, 300 to 400,000 per minute. And then sweat, we produce up to 10 liters a day, depending on the body
And
activity.
look at these numbers, right? Did you ever realize that your body is doing this? Say, no. And you don't know how it's happening. I don't know how it's happening. You see, that's why it's called imponderable. You can't really conceive of it. I mean, even you hear the statistics, still you say, okay. But it doesn't mean you understand anything about it, right? Go ahead.
So then going back to the cell, so there, as we mentioned earlier, there are 100 trillion cells approximately in one human body. And then within one cell, if you take one strand of DNA within the cell, there are 3.2 billion base pairs in the strand of DNA, which is basically the coded pairs.
How many strands are in one cell?
Well, there are it depends on how many chromosomes there are. So I think there's about 24.
How many?
20. 46, because it's 2 times 23.
Pairs of strands?
Yeah, 23 pairs chromosomes, so that makes it 46 strands.
46 strands of DNA.
And each strand, let's see. One strand of DNA is 3.2 billion
Yes, 3.2 billion base pairs.
base pairs, right?
And
So then there are 46 pairs. So 46 times 3.2 billion.
Yes.
Go ahead. In what? In one DNA?
In one strand of DNA.
Yeah. How much DNA is there?
So the length of all the DNA in the body are in one cell. There's 20K genes per strand of DNA. So the combination of the base pairs, a certain length of the base pairs makes a gene. So each strand of DNA has 220,000 genes. And each strand of DNA, if it is rolled out, it comes to approximately 6 feet in length. And the length of all the DNA in the body combined is 67 billion miles, or 150,000 round trips to the moon.
Did you know that? You see, it's so little that we understand about our own body. So little. That's mysterious. Go ahead.
So then within the nervous system or the brain, we have neurotransmitters. So neurotransmitters are fired between neurons, which are the brain cells, every second to basically command our body to do different things. So there are 100 different types of neurotransmitters that are possible in the brain. And there are approximately 86 billion neurons in the brain. And each neuron contains multiple neurotransmitters.
So we're running into billions and trillions here, right? So that's why I say the macrocosmic universe we live in and the microcosmic world within our human bodies are both enigmatic and imponderable. The universe and the human body have boundaries, yet in both there are infinite entities. Okay, I don't know about infinite entities, but infinite... Okay, I'll just put constituents. But anyway, we'll see. All right, keep going.
And the final system was the endocrine system, which is the hormone system. And I was able to find that there were more than 50 different types of hormones in the body. But I wasn't able to find any numbers or the number of production of these hormones, because it depends on the person, their age, and different factors.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 types of hormones.
Yeah, these are the 7 main types of hormones, and then there are 50 plus different types of other hormones in the body.
Very good. So we're going to have to get more information, but this is a very good start. Okay, Smart, your homework. So let me ask you a question, Shasta. Do you find this exercise or this homework that you did helpful for your studies? In what way? Well, just your general studies. Right? You're studying things in school, right?
Yes, Maharaj. Because it helps me understand how complex the body is, and within the body how many different activities are happening, and how
that are outside of your understanding.
That are outside of our understanding.
Of your control.
And of our control.
Yeah, that's the point. That's why your body is a microcosm of the universe. Yeah. Okay, Smart, you're up.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Haribol.
So the homework was to find out all the different chemicals the body produces and the quantities, and also list all the numbers of DNA, RNA, etc. in the human body. So some general body statistics are: one germ can multiply into more than 8 million germs in one day. average
Beware
person
the germs.
the average person produces more than a liter of mucus each day. The normal daily production of saliva varies between 0.5 and 1.5 liters. Some blood statistics are there are between 4,000 and 11,000 white blood cells per microliter of blood.
Microliter of blood. Wow. What does that mean, a microliter?
Milliliter means like one by 1,000, and micro means
1 by 1,000, right?
1 by 100,000?
What?
a billionth of a liter. Yeah. A millionth of a liter. Yeah.
A millionth of a liter. A million. Yeah.
6 zeros.
There are between 4.35 to 5.65 million red blood cells per microliter of blood for men and 3.92 to 5.13 million red blood cells per microliter of blood for women.
Oh, that proves men are superior to women. No, it doesn't.
Some cell statistics are there are about 37.2 trillion cells in the body. There are approximately 1,300 different enzymes found in the human cell. There are 3.2 billion base pairs in the human genome. And there's 46 DNA chromosomes in the human genome. There are 360,000 RNA molecules present in a single mammalian cell.
It's in a single cell.
Yeah. So, chemicals the body produces. In my research, I found that the body produces emotional chemicals like dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter produced by the hypothalamus, a small region of the brain that helps you feel pleasure. Serotonin is another neurotransmitter produced when you feel satisfaction or importance. It also helps regulate your sleep, appetite, and mood. Many antidepressant medications are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors that help boost levels of serotonin. Oxytocin is a hormone produced by the hypothalamus and released by the pituitary gland that produces feelings of love and connection. Endorphins are opioid peptides produced by the hypothalamus and pituitary glands that operate as neurotransmitters. They trigger positive feelings when you do something you enjoy.
Okay, good. There's a lot of things
Positive
in the body.
feelings when,
And Maharaj, I was doing a similar study, and then I found one. I felt this is in Khan Academy, but it talks about how the human body develops from a single cell, and then along the way they talk about how it is an amazing transformation, and they don't know how that is happening. So one of the things here it talks about is the development, the big picture. During development, a human or other multicellular organism goes through an amazing transformation, one at least as dramatic as the metamorphosis of a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. Over the course of hours, days, or months, the organism turns from a single cell called zygote, which is the product of sperm meeting the egg, into a huge organized collection of cells, tissues, and organs. As an embryo develops, its cells divide, grow, and migrate in specific patterns to make a more and more elaborate body. To function correctly, that body needs well-defined axes, such as head versus tail. It also needs a specific collection of many celled organs and other structures positioned in the right spots along the axis and connected up with one another in the right ways. The cells of an organism's body must also specialize into many functionally different types as the development goes on. Your body, or even the body of a newborn, contains a wide array of different cell types, from neurons to liver cells to blood cells. each one of these cell types is found only in certain part of the body and in certain tissues of certain organs where its function is needed. How does this intricate cellular dance unfold?
Yeah, how? You tell me. Send me that. That's interesting. Okay, now I'm going to try and finish quickly now. Now we're going to give you an example of the disarray of modern speculators. Okay, so there is there's this man called Steve Baker. He's a senior software engineer. And the question is, why are viruses not classified as living things? Okay, because in the body there's so many things like DNA and viruses and other things that there's a question, are they living cells or are they not living cells? Right? Because there's huge amounts of these things. So, the original question that these people are trying to answer is DNA in itself a living thing? Okay. So anyway, this Steve Barker gives a very interesting answer. He says, why are viruses not classified as living things? It's a contentious matter, but the problem is that we have no solid definition of the word life or living. Right? There are disease-causing things called prions, which are pretty much definitely not living. There are malformed proteins that can cause other proteins to similarly malform. Diseases like the infamous mad cow disease and its unspellable human equivalent are caused by prions. Then there are bacteria, algae, and fungi, which we all seem to agree are definitely living things. No arguments there. But every single time we attempt to use the English language to nail down a range of different things with a single black or white word, we get into trouble. What is a car and what is a truck? What is a male and what is a female? What is rock music and what is pop music? These are all efforts to put a hard-line distinction into a situation that's a lot more complicated and nuanced than that. So between the definitely not living prions and the definitely alive bacteria, we have gray areas. We have the gray area viruses. They exhibit many things that we class as living and others that we don't. For example, the larger objects on the left and the almost octahedral object on the right are both rather beautiful crystals. So there's a picture of this, right? Each one about 1.5 millimeters across. You definitely say that these were like tiny gemstones. They're actually crystals formed by billions of viruses of a kind that infects tobacco plants. It's a kind of famous as the tobacco mosaic virus. They simply don't fit with the idea of being alive. You can take a bunch of those crystals and stick them in a nice dry place, and they'll be unchanged 100 years from now. But dissolve them in water and put them in contact with a tobacco plant, and they'll infect the plant's cells and make it sick. If you then extract the virus from the plant, you can crystallize it and get back to these crystals. It doesn't seem like a living thing, but this virus, the megavirus, which infects amoeba, has a complex structure. It has 1 million base pairs of DNA and sophisticated behaviors. Denying that this is a living thing is decidedly problematic. It's more complex than some bacteria. Conclusion. People who read a lot of my answers will probably guess what I'm about to say. This is a question about linguistics, not biology. We know what viruses are and know how they behave. There isn't too much mystery left there. In truth, we don't have a solid definition of the word life. And when you do come across one, it's generally nonsense. For example, living things reproduce, eat, excrete, move, have respiration, and die. Okay, so what about a fire? A fire can emit sparks that can start new fires, so fires can reproduce. They eat materials like wood and cloth. They excrete ash. A fire moves. Fires breathe in oxygen and exhale CO2, just like an animal. When fires run out of food or oxygen, they die. I have yet to see a definition of life that does not either include something like fire that we do not consider to be living, or which excludes something that we do consider to be alive. Since there is no good bright line definition for life, the viruses out there are sitting right on that vague borderline and can fall upon either side of that border depending on how you choose to define life. This isn't science, it's linguistics. Okay, that's his paper. But that's his comment. Now, what do we say about this? Well, we say that the entire material energy is the inferior spiritual energy of Krishna. And the jiva and the entire spiritual world and all the liberated souls in the spiritual world are superior energy, superior spiritual energy. But both are spiritual, both are eternal. Now, in every atom and in the heart of every living entity, there's Paramatma. In every atom, there's also Paramatma, right? And in every human being, there's Paramatma and Jiva. So the difference between life, something that's living, and something that's not living, let's not talk about virus right now, let's talk about DNA. Today, they can exhume a body from a grave and extract the DNA from that dead body. Right? So the whole body is dead, but they can get the DNA from the bones or any other part of the body that's dead. And it's been dead for a long time. It could be even hundreds or thousands or millions of years. So most people will say DNA is not a living cell. It's not a living being. Right? But what do we say? We say that Krishna as Paramatma is present in every cell in the material world. But when there's Krishna and the Jivatma, it's a living being. It could be a mountain. It's because anything that grows and diminishes is living. Right? So it can be a mountain, it can be a cloud, or it can be a human being, it can be an ant, it can be a microbe. Right? That means there's Paramatma and Jivatma in that body. Whereas when you take a rock or a carpet or a microphone, yeah, Paramatma is present in every atom. So, in one sense, you could say that everything animate is living. Animate means it's moving, it's growing, it's reducing. So there's a soul, there's an individual soul there. But everything that's inanimate is not a living being. But still the Paramatma is in it. So even this microphone, over time, it will deteriorate. Right? It might not grow, but it will deteriorate. But that type of deterioration is not a symptom of it being alive. But there is a symptom that Paramatma is in it, and therefore things can fluctuate somewhat. But it's not considered a living thing because it doesn't have consciousness. Whereas anything living has a certain level of consciousness. Jagdish Chandra Bose proved that. He proved that plants have similar type of response to stimulus or stimuli as human beings do. And that means they have a level of consciousness. Right? Okay, so because all these people answering this question, is DNA a living cell? They all believe in the Big Bang. They all believe in Darwinism. And therefore, they can't even define what is living, what is life. Right? There's confusion about it. And they're always going to be confused because they don't have Vedic knowledge. Are we confused? No. We know this Paramatma is present in every atom of the universe. Therefore, everything is being controlled by the Lord. But someone who is conscious, or something that is conscious, like a plant, has a jiva in it, because besides the consciousness, it grows and it diminishes. And there are, even amongst the scientists, 9 symptoms that are necessary to call something living. What are those 9 symptoms? And I'll stop with that point. They are homeostasis, the regulation of the internal environment to maintain a constant state, for example, sweating to reduce temperature. Organization, being structurally composed of one or more cells, the basic units of life. Metabolism, transformation of energy by converting chemicals and energy into cellular components, called anabolism. And decomposing organic matter, catabolism. Living things require energy to maintain internal organization, homeostasis, and to produce the other phenomena associated with life. Then growth. So this is, we covered 2 points, right? 3 points. Now fourth, growth. Maintenance of a higher rate of anabolism than catabolism. A growing, I guess, growth as opposed to diminishing. A growing organism increases in size in all of its parts rather than simply accumulating matter. Adaptation, the ability to change over time in response to the environment. This ability is fundamental to the process of evolution and is determined by the organism's heredity, diet, and external factors. Response to stimuli. A response can take many forms, from the contraction of a unicellular organism to external chemicals, to complex reactions involving all the senses of multicellular organisms. A response is often expressed by motion. For example, the leaves of a plant turning toward the sun, phototropism, and chemotaxis. And then finally, reproduction. So you have reproduction, response to stimuli, adaptation, growth, metabolism, organization, homeostasis. Those are the symptoms necessary to call something live. Right? Okay, so why are we studying this? Because there is a definite parallel between the imponderable distances in the universe and the imponderable number of chemicals and living entities in a material body. Both of them are almost impossible. Well, both of them are impossible to understand. And of course, the scientists don't even take into consideration the soul, either Paramatma or Jivatma. That's another thing. Therefore, they can never really understand the reality of the microcosmic body. Okay, stop right there. Are there any questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So I was just thinking about like consciousness in a human, a living being. So can we define consciousness as the response to Krishna's activities? For example, since we calling everything around it is a Krishna, I mean Paramatma in form of Paramatma, so everything around us is Paramatma or Krishna. So when we call consciousness, means it's a response.
Consciousness means awareness.
Yeah.
So there's different levels of awareness. The highest level of awareness is to have a universal vision of Krishna in everything.
Yeah.
That's the highest level of consciousness.
Yeah.
The lowest level is just seeing objects, and not having any connection at all to Krishna.
So I'm thinking like human body, because all, like you said, mountains or other living beings, they all have consciousness, like vegetables or
Limited consciousness.
living. Everybody has limited consciousness, but the consciousness increases, and we as a
No, we have a potential for unlimited consciousness.
yeah, the human has the highest consciousness, right? So he has the ability to respond to
we
Krishna.
have the possibility. It doesn't mean we all have attained it, but we have the possibility.
At least potential. Yeah. So does that mean like we are the species of living being actually which has highest potential to respond to Krishna rather than other.
There are higher beings than us. There's some rakshasas. They're higher than us. They have more intelligence, material intelligence, more power, and we see that in the form of people like Hiranyakashipu and Ravana and people like that. But we have the most favorable position for becoming liberated from the cycle of birth and death, even more favorable than the demigods, because they get overwhelmed with the mode of goodness. But we can free ourselves from all three modes' influence by full engagement in devotional service. So we have the most, let's say, chance of being liberated from the cycle of birth and death. And the highest consciousness is universal vision of Krishna in everything.
Yeah, Maharaj, this is just going back to the verse, service versus service attitude. I just wanted to say that it was actually, again, revealing to hear that, because that's the big difference. Like, it doesn't matter what we have done or in the past or what we, but it's about what is our mood and service attitude all the time.
Yes.
So that's the fundamental thing. And then,
well, service attitude will lead to service, right? But if we have a positive service attitude and understand that it's our constitutional position, then we can attain perfection in this life.
Very bold.
Prabhupada writes there in the purport, this attitude itself is very pleasing to the Lord.
Well, if someone had a nice service attitude for you, would you like it or not like it?
Obviously.
Yeah. So just by understanding yourself, you can understand a lot about Krishna. Yeah. Okay, Haribol. No more questions, no more answers. Haribol. So homework for next week is we want to go back to the quantification of what chemicals are in the human body. So we went over today a lot of things, but now we want to get more precise. Oh, by the way, send that Khan Academy quote to everyone who wants to do their homework.
Maharaj, we have some questions.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj,
Hare Krishna.
my question is, why is a Sudra better than a Brahmana?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that question because you have to look at the full statement to understand. It says that a Sudra who is engaged in transcendental activity is better than a Brahmana who does not engage in transcendental activity. Okay, that's what the statement is. It is actually better to be a Sudra than to be a Brahmana and not develop the service attitude. So if you're a Sudra, a real Sudra who is going to be engaged in transcendental activity, not mundane activity, that's better than being a Brahma who doesn't develop the service attitude. That means who doesn't have the strong idea that I should serve Krishna in this lifetime with this body. That's the meaning, that's the purpose why I got this body. It's to serve Krishna. So if there's a brahmana who knows the difference between matter and spirit, who knows what is Maya, who knows what is Krishna, but doesn't engage in Krishna's service, then the Sudra who's engaged in transcendental activity is better than that brahmana. You understand now?
Yes,
It's not
Maharaj.
that, the statement is not a Sudra is better than a brahmana. Okay? Because if you say that, everyone will argue with you, right? The Sudra who's engaged in transcendental activity, who has the service attitude to please Radha and Krishna, is better than a Brahma who's not engaged in and not who hasn't developed the service attitude, because that attitude alone satisfies the Lord. Okay, that attitude alone satisfies the Lord, right? Every living being, even if he be a Brahmana by qualification, must take to the transcendental service of the Lord. Both Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam support that this service attitude is the perfection of the living being. Okay, so you have to, a Brahmana minus devotional service is still a mundane person. A Sudra plus transcendental service is a transcendental person. Okay? You got another question?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. My question is about, I think, a class from last week. You mentioned that if you're still in this material world, at the time of destruction, all the individual jivas will go back to the body of Mahavishnu and wait for the next creation to come back. Why is that a bad thing, Maharaj? If you're going back to the body of Mahavishnu, which is still considered spiritual, like why is that a bad thing?
Because you're not conscious. And you're going to have to wait maybe billions of years to get another chance. And there's no guarantee you're going to get a human body in that next chance. Right? We saw, someone who likes marijuana, they can end up like a marijuana bug. You see, so, why you want to gamble like that? That's gambling.
No, I'm just trying to understand. Like, when you say there's no consciousness, what does that mean, Maharaj, when you're in the body of Mahavishnu?
When you're sleeping, are you conscious? When you're in deep sleep, are you conscious? No. So the symptom of a human being is consciousness, right? So you're going to be completely not conscious in the body of Mahavishnu. And you have to wait all these years. You say, well, I won't be conscious, so what's the difference? Yeah, there's a big difference. And there's no guarantee what you're going to be in the next birth, right? It depends on your karma. So why take a chance like that? You could stay indefinitely long time in the material world. Because you have an eternal soul, you could possibly stay eternally in the material world. Look at what you're missing. You're missing Radha and Krishna and their ecstatic pastimes with the gopis and Nanda Maharaj and festivals. And you're missing everything. So once you realize what you're missing, then you realize, ooh, I don't want to go back to Mahavishnu.
It's just like long-term coma.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you,
It's a
Maharaj.
state
Hare
of
Krishna.
you're unconscious. The more you become conscious, the more you're alive. The less you're conscious, the less you're alive.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Is
As
that
we
your
have
question?
been as we have been studying DNA and cloning, and the question you raised, when an active DNA is taken out, why is not it getting tested? Like why are the doctors are not being, or the scientists are not being do you call successful about it? Then
Successful about what?
about cloning from the existing active DNA, which is given from Krishna. But where the science has proven is in the fertility industry, where there is this process called IVF, where they take the eggs and then they do.
They make a baby.
And they induce back into the uterus, and which is actively proven, and which is successful.
Yeah, but they're starting with things that are living. They're not starting with dead chemicals.
No, true. My question was like, when does the soul actually, like at this point, how do we understand where exactly the soul comes into?
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Maharaj.
Well, that Prabhupada said, well, that was in a previous purport. That's the mystery. The soul comes from Mahavishnu, who glances on the material nature and places the soul in the sperm. So that was one second. Yeah, so that's in the beginning of this discussion of the Virat Rupa. Yeah. So that is third canto. 3 point? Oh, is it that? Hold your horses. Hold your horses. It is.
You're trying to refer to the Mahavishnu.
Yes.
I think this is 3/5/26. 3/5/26. 3/5/26.
Is it 3/5/26?
Paragraph of purport.
3/5. Yeah, that's it. That's a 3/5/26. Yeah, good. So it says here that it's the first mystery. It says, similarly, Mother Material Nature cannot produce any living entity from her material elements unless and until she is impregnated with living entities by the Lord Himself. That is the mystery of the generation of the living entities. This impregnating process is performed by the first Purusha incarnation, Karunavasai Vishnu. Simply by his glance over material nature, the whole matter is accomplished. So there it is right there. This is a mystery. The scientists don't understand this. But we're able to understand it because we're being taught by Srimad Bhagavatam, Sukadeva Goswami, and Srila Prabhupada's purport. So there are two mysteries. That's the first mystery, how the jiva goes into the sperm. And the second mystery is that living entities are directly supplied from the Lord, and they are never products of material nature. Thus, no scientific advancement of material science can ever produce a living being. That is the whole mystery of the material creation. No scientific research will ever be able to figure this out, how the soul is going into the sperm. You can figure it out if you hear Bhagavatam, but you're not going to figure it out by listening to the scientists. They're never going to figure it out. Because it's something unseen, something they can't measure. They can measure the effects of it, but they can't measure the actual act of it. Okay, so let's have Guru Puja. Who is going to sing the Guru Puja? Who wants to sing? Okay, here he comes.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Bandhu Moyi Savadana Mate
Bandhu Mohi Savadana Mate
Jahara Prasade Bai E Baba Toriya Jai Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Hoy Te
Krishna Prapti Hoya
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitite Koriya Kya Arana Kari Hamane Asha Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utama Gati Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित प्रेमा भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते प्रेमा भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते वेद गाय जहाँ चरित श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदा Jai Nara Bandhu. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Jai Nara Bandhu. Loknath Lokera Jivana. Ha ha Prabhu Karo Daya Deho More Pada Chaya. Ha ha Prabhu Karo Daya Deho More Pada Chaya. Ebe Jas Gushuk Tribhuvana. Jaya Prabhupada Patita Pavana. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishta Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Shrimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sikaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Kundu Radha Kundu Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Samavera Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivinoda Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Ramachandra Vises Sanyava Bhaskati Nastana.
The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates, by him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet, Srila Prabhupada.
So I haven't given the homework yet. I will. Yeah. Okay, the homework is okay, I have really good homework. This is like, advanced homework. So, but you have to, somebody has to subscribe to this. Let me find it on the internet. It's a college level or a very high level web page that has a huge amount of articles, scientific articles. But to get to those articles, you have to subscribe to it. Okay. and there's a specific article I want everyone to read. Now it's like 8 pages, but it's very brilliant man. His name is let me see, 1 second. Okay, let me go to the computer.